allegedly is just an ordinary bloke from Basildon. Well, he's far from that. We all know that. His videos are very thorough and well thought out on YouTube. And I watched in detail his Flat Earth video 2 days ago, and it's properly messed me up. So, ladies and gentlemen, allegedly Dave!
Hello. All right, everyone? All right, everyone. Okay. Everyone hear me all right? Even you guys in the cheap seats at the back? Yeah? Okay, cool. Right, so, because I've only got an hour, right, this talk is like 3 hours long usually, so I've had to cram it all together into one little bit. So, eventually I'll put out the full video that talks about the fourth dimension in greater detail. So, I'm going to start with answering the question, what is this matrix that we're in, okay? Because we are in a sort of matrix. We call it the divine matrix. So where we are, or what there is, all there is energy. But it's a kind of conscious energy, right? That's all there is, energy which is conscious and self-aware, right? Which is the I am. You might want to call it, God or whatever. But it's a conscious living energy which has unlimited potential to be anything. Okay, just like you've got the unlimited potential to think of anything. Yeah, this is unlimited potential as far as energy is concerned. We would call it the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so our ability to perceive this is, limited to visible light. Okay, just a tiny slice of that spectrum. Our machinery can detect all the way up to, actually just beyond here, we've got cosmic rays, okay? And down here, at the lower frequencies, beyond here, we've got solid matter, light slowed down to a slow vibration, okay? But the Most High, which I call the I Am, the Most High exists, goes off infinitely that way and infinitely that way, okay? So, I don't know why this is... Sorry, excuse me a second. Ooh. I don't know why that's gone like that. Sorry, my screen's gone all funny. Okay, there you go. Sorry about that. So, this singular being, that is all there is, right? If he wanted to symbolize himself, he might symbolize himself as a point. Yeah, singularity. Because, it doesn't matter that is everything there is. He will symbolize himself as a point. What do you think the most interesting concept for a singular being that is all there is? Anybody? Bueller? Nobody? Oh, good grief. I do like a bit of audience participation, yeah? Okay. Exactly, other. Something other than him, okay? Sorry? Okay. Would you like to? No. Okay, so something other than the Most High, right, is the most interesting concept, right? But we've actually, because that other has to be a certain distance away, he's actually come up with one-dimensional space, a line, yeah? Now, that other, right, is over here a certain distance away, but it could all quite easily be over here, or over here, or over there, or down here, that certain distance away. So the Most High might think, well, where are all the places that other can be from me that certain distance away? Well, that would be a circle, wouldn't it? Follow me here. Yeah, so that's all the places that other can be from the one. Okay? That's actually now come up with the concept of two-dimensional space. So once he explores where all the other can be from him, the next interesting concept is, what would I look like from the perspective of the other? So that would be another circle. Is this starting to look a bit familiar? Yeah? So you've got this idea of what's known as a vesica Pisces in there, okay? Now remember, this is the Most High exploring ideas, okay? So if you start drawing some lines here, okay, what you get, you actually get two different lengths of line. You've got the diameter of a circle and the radius of a circle. They're the only two lines. But interestingly, if you draw, we can't see the letter E up there, but if you draw a line from here through the centre down to here, excitingly, you've got a different length of line. Ooh, how exciting. And actually, you've got two different lengths. You've got from E to H, or you've got from the centre down to H. But if you take that line from the centre there and sweep it up so it meets this line, you get a very interesting number. It's like if if AB is 1, AK is 1.618. Has anybody come across that number before? Yeah. A few of you, yes. Well, we're going to come back to that number, so just bear that number in mind. So, again, you'll notice that these are squares up here. Right? If you take that line, take that letter K there, and you draw up from that point, so where it meets this line at the top here, you eventually you get this rectangle, which is made up of a square and a rectangle. And in that rectangle, you've got a square and a rectangle of the same proportions. And in that little rectangle there, you've got a square and a rectangle with the same proportions, and so on in and so on out. And if you draw an arc in each of these squares and join it up, you get this very particular spiral. Right? It's called the golden spiral, but we're going to see that later on as well. But if you put numbers in each of those squares, okay, so again, we start with the ones in the smallest ones. So that first square is 1, so there's another 1. So the square next to it is a 2. So the next one here is 2 plus 1, that's 3. Next one is 2 plus 3, 5. And 5 plus 3, 8. Anybody come across this sequence of numbers before? Fibonacci sequence, yeah? Now, what's interesting about Fibonacci sequence is it's a sequence of numbers that implies mind. There's a mind behind this sequence of numbers. Because what it is the next number is the previous two numbers added together. So a mind has to calculate the next number, okay? Well, what was I? Yes. So literally, this is the sequence of numbers, the real sequence of numbers for this universe. You know, our sequence of numbers is a human one: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's our number sequence. The sequence of the universe is this, and we're going to see why later on. So, we can see why now, actually, because the way branches, on a tree will branch out will be according to the Fibonacci sequence. The way petals grow around a plant, or a flower, Fibonacci sequence. The way leaves, the distribution of leaves on a stem is according to the Fibonacci sequence. Okay? The other thing about that sequence is if you divide one number into the next number in the sequence, what it does, it hovers around a very particular number. So 1 divided by 1 is 1, too low. 2 divided by 1, 2, too high. 3 divided by 2, 1.5, too low. 5 divided by 3, 1.666, too high. Too low, too high, too low, too high. It hovers around 1.618. Do you remember that number? Yeah? So the higher up you get in the Fibonacci sequence, the closer it gets to 1.618. But it will never, ever reach it. Okay? Again, remember that number. We're going to come back to it. So back to the vesica Pisces. Embedded in that vesica Pisces is the basis of all two-dimensional geometry, the equilateral triangle. Okay? So you're drawing new points where the circles meet through the existing point there to another point on the circle. So notice you've got, within the equilateral triangle, you've got another equilateral triangle facing downwards. We're going to see that again as well. Okay. So all two-dimensional geometry can be found in, this pattern of circles. And if you start, continue drawing these circles, you get to something called the seed of life, and eventually you get to this. Anybody come across this before? Yeah, I always wondered what the big deal about this was. Back in 2012, everybody was raving about it. I was like, oh, it's a pretty pattern and all that, but so what? But as I said, all two-dimensional geometry is embedded in that pattern. And also, the hint of three-dimensional geometry. So you've got this cube, but it's in 2 dimensions, but this point here is the hint that it's coming out towards you. So it's the hint of a 3rd dimension. So now we've now created this idea of a 3rd dimension. Okay? Turns out that this process of drawing circles is the blueprint of life on this earth. So eggs sort of divide, divide in that way. Cells divide in that sort of same way. Okay? It follows the same pattern we've just gone through. Okay? And consequently, what you find is that spiral that we saw is actually embedded in everything in this world. So the way, ferns kind of curl up, the way, seeds in a sunflower, the way your ear is shaped, everything, including, and this is a picture of, obviously, a girl sort of flicking her hair back that's wet, the way the water curves over. It tells you that it's the fabric of space conforms to this number sequence, and this number 1.618. Okay, even the proportions of your body. Yeah, so you can see how the golden spiral, is shaped, sort of maps onto your face, but your whole body is proportioned in this proportion 1 to 1.618. So if this long part of my arm is 1, here to here is 1.618. And that proportion is all over your body. Okay? Now remember, with a Fibonacci sequence, we never quite get to perfection. We never quite get to 1.618. Always hovers too high or too low. The closer you are, your body proportions are to 1 to 1.618, the more beautiful you are. And the further away you get from it, the less attractive you are. And it happens in buildings. When they build a building according to this golden ratio, the building looks beautiful. When they go away from it, like they do in all our modern buildings, they look ugly. Yeah? So, our idea of beauty is tied in to this ratio. So go back to the Vesica Pisces. So start with this. We've got 2 points at the top and the bottom there of the Vesica Pisces. If we draw a circle, and you can't see the top, but if you draw a circle from C at the top there, of radius CD, draw a circle around there, and do the same on D, you get this. If you do the same thing with E and F, you get this. So it's starting to look a bit complicated, isn't it? Right? But it's a very simple rule, right? Just iterated over and over again, and you can see that it not only looks complicated, but you'll see it's starting to look self-similar at every level. And you'll see it better if I actually draw some lines here. Okay? So you see this diamond shape on its side, but embedded in the diamond shape is another diamond shape standing up. And embedded in that is a diamond shape on its side, and another one standing up. And so on in, and so on out. Okay, forever. This is what's known as a fractal progression. Anybody heard of fractals? One or two of you. Has anybody heard of fractals? Okay. You guys are going to be hard work, I know it, yeah? So again, this is a very simple rule. If we make the rule a bit more complicated, right, you might have heard of the Mandelbrot set. So it's very difficult to see, but there's a kind of black beetle shape in the corner there, and hopefully, is it going to go? Okay, I'm going to have to start it. Okay, so it will start in a second. So we're zooming in to one particular spot on that beetle shape, and literally you're going to find this universe of complexity. Okay, and you can zoom into this forever, and it generates all this complexity. And I'm going to let it zoom in for a while, but you can actually sit there and watch it for ages. I sat there and watched it for an hour. Yeah, and so just look at it, stare at it. You're feeling very sleepy, very sleepy. No, so I want to let it sort of zoom in for a while, because I want to show you something interesting. Right? So all this complexity just zooming into one spot. We could have moved over a little bit and seen a completely different universe. But look where we've got to. We've got back to that beetle shape that we saw at the beginning. Has everybody got that? Yeah? So literally, again, self-similar at every level. Okay, and you'll find that our world is built in the same way. We know that because video game designers, instead of, and this is not real, this is Unreal Engine 6.2, okay, and it's generating scenery fractally. So it doesn't store every leaf, every rock, or anything. It literally procedurally generates according to fractal rules. And the result is incredibly lifelike, because that's the way our universe is created, with fractals, okay? So remember that what I'm talking about so far, is a construct in a living mind, okay? It's just information being held in a living mind. And that mind is, his name and address is, I am everything, everywhere, all at once. Which is a great film, by the way. I don't know if you've seen it. But yeah, I am everything, everywhere, all at once. He's everything, okay? So the process we've gone through so far is we've started with unlimited potential, this undefined energy field, and we've added information to it. Now, it turns out it's not very efficient to store information as ones and zeros as we do it. There's a type of mathematics called Fourier transforms, which codes information in the form of probabilities. So it stores an awful lot of information as probabilities, and it creates what's known as interference patterns. So this is a two-dimensional plate, right, stored with enough information to describe a three-dimensional scene. And that's called a hologram. Okay? So when you look at the hologram without a laser shining on it, what you see is that, interference patterns. When you fire that laser in it and look at it, you then see a whole 3D scene stored on that flat plate. Okay? And yeah, it's quite amazing, really. So what's happening is somehow you are looking at those probabilities and pulling out a scene, a probable scene, the scene that would probably appear to you from your perspective. Okay, so we're not just passive observer or passive passengers on this journey. We actually do something to create this place. Okay, so I'm going to play a little thing for you.
And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall.
Interference
Places
pattern.
where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. And we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. Physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched. It was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange, never world of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave function simply by observing.
So just by looking at reality, we collapse unlimited possibility down into something, particulate. Okay? So, in the example of the holographic plate, that plate, if we was to store that information as just ones and zeros, the image on that plate looked at by these two observers, you'd see the same image, but just flipped over. But in this case, observer A here is seeing that image. He's seeing the back of some buildings. Observer B is seeing the front of those buildings, even though they're looking at the same plate. So they're looking at these interference patterns and collapsing their own particular view from it. Does that make sense? It makes sense to a couple of you over here, doesn't it? Did that make sense? Yeah. Anyway, so as I said, we're not just passive observers. Yeah, your name and address is I am little I am. Yeah, here and now. Okay, because right now we're all sharing a now, but we've all got different heres. Yeah, my here is looking this way, your here is looking that way, your here is looking that way, and so on. Yeah. So reality is a fractally generated hologram based on the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. Okay, it's information stored holographically as a probabilistic, so probabilities, interference pattern on the slice of the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so it's self-similar at every level. You've heard the phrase "as above, so below." Yeah. And there is no matter, all of it is mind, consciousness, okay? And as I say, each observer collapses their own version of the probability wave. And it's partitioned by dimensions. So let's have a look at the fourth dimension. Well, so we know the first three dimensions, but what is the fourth? Who said that? Get out. Go. All right. So we can actually extrapolate what the fourth dimension is, right? Literally by going down the dimensions that we know, then back up again. Okay. So imagine I've got a cube in my hand, right? If I cut that cube in half and look at its cross section, I'm now looking at a flat plane, a surface, right? Right? Yeah. Do I have to do all the work here? So you're looking at a flat plate, a plane, a surface. If I cut that surface in half, look at its cross-section, now I'm looking at a line, right? Yeah, good, you're learning. If I cut that line in half, look at its cross-section, now I'm looking at a point. Yeah? Right. So nobody likes a smart ass. Right, so necessarily a line is an infinite number of points all merged together into one thing going off in a direction. Got it? Right, yeah. A flat plane is an infinite number of lines all merged together into one thing going off in a different direction. Right? A cube is a whole infinite number of flat planes all merged together into one thing going off in a different direction. Right? So, and you shut up. So, what is the next direction, right, that these cubes can go? Well, funnily enough, I know what the answer is. Yeah, I know. Yeah, so literally time. Yes, well done, everyone. So literally, the fourth dimension is a whole bunch of cubes, an infinite number of cubes, all merged together into one thing, right? Going off in the direction of time, right? So the scientific community would represent this cube into something what they call a hypercube. What's the first thing you notice about that image? Just the very first thing you notice about it. It's moving. Indicates progression. Yeah? So let's bring this into human terms. A chair, this wooden chair here, is a 3-dimensional slice of a 4-dimensional object. Get that? No, right. So this is a 4-dimensional object, but we interact with it on the 3rd dimension as a slice, a 3-dimensional slice. Okay? So let's imagine what that 4th-dimensional chair would look like. Imagine a flash of light from the sun. Okay? That light gets absorbed by a leaf. It gets turned into wood. Right? The tree grows, gets cut down, turned into lumber. Somebody has an idea for a chair, so they turn the lumber into a chair. And so that chair might exist for 20 years or something, okay? But then it breaks, ends up in landfill, okay, where it breaks down into a liquid, and then that liquid will break down into a gas, and maybe that gas ignites and turns back into a flash of light. That is the entire lifespan of that chair. And we interact with slices of that. We interact with slices when it's a chair. We might have interacted with a slice when it was a tree. We might have climbed it when we were kids or something. Right? But that chair is just one slice of this process. And in the 4th dimension, that chair exists as that entire process all happening all at once. Get it? Yes. Good. Right, so the whole of reality is exactly like that. The whole of our time and space is all merged together into one thing, all happening all at once in the 4th dimension. Okay? Kind of like a kaleidoscope. Anybody played with a kaleidoscope? Yeah? So that pattern looks really, really complicated and, very intricate and stuff. But you know that there is a segment with all the coloured dyes and things, bits and pieces, right? And the rest of it is an arrangement of mirrors that has reflections and reflections and reflections and reflections and reflections and reflections, yeah, and so on. So here's the thing. In a 3D, I can't remember what slides I've got, so I don't want to rush ahead, actually. So if you understand that concept, the pattern, there's no direct access to the pattern, okay? It means that there's nothing random in this. It's all driven by that pattern. There's nothing random. Even though it looks really complicated, it's not random. There's time and space isn't random either, okay? So there's this experiment that was done called the ink and glycerin experiment. So I'm going to show you that. So there's a tub of glycerin, and it's got a handle on it, right, on the top, so it can stir the glycerin. And he's just going to inject a few or 3 blobs of ink into that glycerin. And when he's done with the 3rd one, he's going to turn that handle 5 times. So as he turns it, you can see obviously it's going to start to smear out and mix in with the glycerin. So he's going to turn it 5 times, and it should be pretty well mixed in there. You see, it's all. Well, it doesn't matter. It's an arbitrary number. Just for the sake of short brevity, I guess. So I think that's the 5th. Now it's going to turn it back. I wonder what's going to happen. So I think this is coming up to 5. And here they come.
You just reversed the film, David.
No, I didn't. No, this is an actual experiment. You know, it's been done loads of times. Literally, there is nothing random in this universe. Yeah, and if we had if we could work out the variables, because obviously it was glycerin, not water, right? Obviously there's more variables involved, but literally there is nothing random in this universe. We can't produce random numbers. On a computer, the best we can do is what's known as pseudo-random, a number that looks like it's random. And it should be obvious why, because to produce this random number, there's a process, but that process is fixed. Right? So whatever seed number you put in, like the time and date, if you put the same number in, you get the same number out. Okay, so you can never produce anything random in this universe, right? Which means, pretty much in the 3D world, there is no free will, because your personality can be reduced to numbers. Yeah, so you can have a number that represents your personality, which means if I give you a stimulus, I can work out what your response is going to be. So this whole world is built, that kaleidoscope is a kaleidoscope of probabilities, which literally maps out your life. So in a 3D, your life is determined already, okay? You can't change it. It's kind of like, again, look at the kaleidoscope idea, okay? Oh no, I better not go, because I'm going ahead of myself. So in the Matrix, do you remember the scene with the architects? So Neo's in that room, and behind him, loads and loads of TV screens with him on it. Those TV screens represented every possible response that Neo could make to the architect's questions. And Neo chose one of them. He couldn't choose anything but one of them. Okay? So it's telling you your life in a 3D is determined. Okay? But here's the thing. The 3D, in the kaleidoscope analogy, 3D is the section with the mirrors. Okay? So you can't change a 3D. It's like trying to fix your hair by messing around with the mirror. Okay? So you can't change. Sorry, Dave, no, you haven't got any hair, so nor have I can't say that. So literally, you can't change the 3D. Right? There's no access from the 3D to the 4D where the pattern is. The pattern exists there. If you make a small change to the pattern in the 4D, what happens to the whole pattern? The whole pattern changes. Make one tiny change in that little area there, the whole of time and space changes around it. Get that? Yeah? Yeah? Because it's like it's an amazing thought. Well, anyway. Yes? In the 3D, well, as I said, your personality, it can be reduced to numbers. That's essentially what I'm saying, right? Because they know enough about you. It's exactly what they're doing. There's something called the real-world simulator, where you exist in that simulation because they're collecting every bit of information about you. Okay, and they're simulating. They've got an avatar somewhere in this machine that is you sitting in that chair right now in a virtual world. Okay, they can hack you in the 3D by knowing everything about you and applying their algorithms to it. Okay, and I have a good probability of what you're going to do. Right, but again, if you make a change in the 4D in the pattern, the whole of time and space changes around it. Well, we're lucky because we have two hemispheres of our brain. One hemisphere, the left hemisphere, grounds you in this world, in the 3D world. Okay? Your senses are connected to it, so it tells you what this now moment is all about. What it looks like, what it smells like, what it tastes like, what it sounds like, what it feels like. Yeah? So that's what grounds you here and now. Okay? Your right hemisphere isn't grounded here. It's grounded in the fourth dimension. Okay? So you've got a totally different set of senses, right, for the fourth dimension. So let's imagine I'm daydreaming, say, and I'm looking up at the ceiling there, daydreaming. Even though my eyes are pointing at the ceiling there, am I seeing the ceiling? Am I seeing the ceiling? No, I'm not. I'm seeing whatever I'm seeing in the fourth dimension with a different set of eyes, right? My hearing has now been suppressed because, I'm daydreaming. Somebody might go, Dave. What? Because I'm not hearing anything in this world. We exist in both dimensions, but our focus can only be in one at one time. Yeah. So right now, your focus is here, right? But if you started thinking about something else, your focus will change to the fourth dimension. Okay. And in the fourth dimension, this is where all ideas start. Again, when you're thinking, when you're dreaming, coming up with new things, you're in the fourth dimension. Okay, so that's where the prototype of everything in our world starts. And when you imagine something, imagining or thinking about something is an action in a fourth dimension. The reaction, every action has a reaction, the reaction happens here. So if you create something in the fourth dimension, eventually it's going to turn up here. Now, this happened to me. So back in, I can't remember the year, I thought it was in 91, but it was earlier than that. No. Back around about the late 80s, I decided I wanted to build a car. I was, fascinated with two-seater sports cars, and nobody was making them at the time. So I decided to make this car. So I built a 1/5 scale model. My mates called it Project Dogshit because that's what mates do, yeah. So I was going to build this car. So I spent a long time designing this car. I built this 1/5 scale model, and what happened was my wife got pregnant, and then it became too expensive a hobby. Not my words, yeah. The married men in the audience know what I'm talking about, yeah. So I never got to build my car. Right, so what happened? Yeah, it was a shame. I have a go at my wife at the time. Yeah. So what I did was I created a hologram in a fourth dimension. Just by concentrating and designing this car in my head, I created a hologram in a fourth dimension. And what happened 7 years later, I'm walking down the street in New York. I look down and I see my car. Right, it's a Mazda MX-5. But it was exactly the same as the model I'd built years before. Right? So here's the thing. When you conceive of something, it now exists in the future. Right? Because we're in a place of mind stuff, right? With unlimited possibility. If you can conceive of something, it will come to pass. Yeah? So when I conceived of that car, there became 100% possibility or probability that it's going to come into being. Now, I didn't build it, so the probability of me building it was low. But Tom Matano at Mazda ended up building that car. But it's not as if it was my invention, because, again, in the fourth dimension, there is no time. It's all happening all at once. So did both me and Tom see it in the future? We didn't design it, we saw it in the future and copied it down. Yeah? Just to underline that point, anybody see the film Star Trek The Voyage Home? Yes. Yes, Star Trek fan over there. All right, so in that film, Scotty goes back in the past, all right, and he tells a scientist the formula for transparent aluminium. Okay, aluminum, Dave, aluminum, yeah. Transparent aluminium, yeah. And Bones says, well, aren't you changing the timeline? And Scotty says, well, how do we know that he didn't invent it? Well, if he invented it, right, and Scotty learned about the formula in school from the guy he just told the formula to, Where did the formula come from? Where did that information come from? Well, it came from the fourth dimension because it's the Most High creating it. As soon as you conceive it, it's going to happen, right? So, but in this reality, who created this idea was somebody called Nicholas Meyer, who's a screenwriter for Star Trek, because in 2015, they created transparent aluminium. I'm getting American now. They actually created it because the screenwriter conceived it. Yeah, and now it's reality. Yeah, we are so powerful in this world. Sorry? Well, everything, like, we are in a place of ultimate, unlimited possibility. All that needs to be done is for one of us to conceive of something, and it's going to happen. At some point or another, it's going to happen. I don't think it does. I think the New Age movement has put a sort of wrong kind of focus on the pineal gland. I'm sure it has a function, but as far as I'm concerned, we've got two brain hemispheres for a reason, okay? And I'm going to go into that reason as well, how it works, not just in the human world as well. So Pythagoras said, consciousness sleeps in the stone, dreams in the plant, awakes in the animal, and slowly becomes aware of itself in man. It means that everything is conscious, okay? Even a rock is conscious. Obviously, it doesn't need a very high level of consciousness because it doesn't even need to sense its surroundings or anything. It's a rock, right? But it's still conscious. Anybody who's read this book, The Secret Life of Plants? Yeah? One or two have read it. Okay, so in that book, it talks about this guy, Cleve Baxter, who hooked up his plants to a lie detector. And he realized that the plants were reacting to him. Okay, so every time he came into the room, the plants reacted. And then he started to realize the plants were reacting to events in his life out of his house. So he might go for a trauma, and at that moment, the plants would react to the trauma. One day, he got a friend to come in and destroy one of the plants. All the other plants went crazy. But then, they went crazy every time that person came into the room, as if they recognized him and were worried about what he was going to do, okay? So plants have a level of consciousness, right, the level that they need, okay? So I'm going to show a little video, but I'm going to have to talk over it because it's in French. But it's this guy French scientist, I have to play it, who created this little robot, right, this tiny little robot, and all it does is that it randomly, or pseudo-randomly, chooses a direction, and then randomly goes a certain distance. Okay, so leave it alone; it'll just wander around aimlessly. Okay, so hello. This is him showing, the machine working, and he put a pen at the bottom of it so he could trace where the machine would go. So the next part of the experiment is he's going to get some newborn chicks, and he's going to imprint the machine on the chick, so the chick thinks the machine is its mother. So he's going to start training the chick now.
Privé de sa mère poule, dès la naissance, ce poussin développe une affection toute particulière pour le robot.
So the chick's going to start following it around like it's its mother.
Dans une cage transparente. Et de voir si le robot qui normalement fonctionne au hasard.
So now he's going to turn the thing on and let it go, and now the chick. Notice that cage at the top there. So the next thing he's going to do, he's going to grab that chick. Now it's imprinted on the machine, and he's going to put that chick into the cage at the top of the screen. So what do you think that machine is going to do? Absolutely right. That machine, no matter where they put it on that board, it's going to find its way to that chick and stay there. right?
Pendant 20 minutes, il s'approche doucement mais sûrement de la cage.
Every time they do this, without the chick, it will just wander aimlessly. When they put the chick there, it's going to go to the chick and stay there, okay? And you're going to see that he's going to get the traces out, and you'll see that every single trace, shows that machine, no matter where they put it, will always end up with the chick.
17 ans plus tard, il a conservé les tracés comme autant de pièces à conviction. Pour
And
lui,
he's
c'est
done
la
it
preuve
thousands
que
of times.
l'esprit a
It
une
always
influence sur la
happens.
matière, même si actuellement aucune loi physique ne permet de
So there you
l'expliquer.
go. You can see he puts it on there, and you can see.
Tracés, dont certains tout à fait
can
impressionnants,
you
comme
see it?
celui-ci, vous voyez,
Not sure you can see it,
où le robot est parti
but yeah,
du
you can
centre
see the trace
et
just
allait
ends up
directement dans le
always
coin de
around
la
the
cage du
cage.
poussin.
Okay, because
De ce genre, on
the
en a en
chick
pagaille.
has a grasp of the
La
fourth
moyenne
dimension
statistique
at
de
an
ces
instinctive
tracés,
level.
certains peuvent donner
Because
de
its
mauvais
instinct
résultats,
is, I want my
et
mummy.
aller dans la direction
Yeah?
opposée. Mais en
So
moyenne,
that
on a
chick
obtenu,
is, without
un
knowing it,
robot qui s'est
affecting the
déplacé
random
2,5
numbers.
fois plus souvent
That means that
vers la
machine
cage
will end up,
que dans la zone
right
opposée.
next to him.
On a fait autant
Okay?
d'expériences avec
Because
les poussins
the chick doesn't have to
qui
have
déjà leur
a high level of
poule,
consciousness. It can't say,
qu'avec
oh, I
les
want better
poussins
food
qui ont été
conditions and,
conditionnés avec
a better
Dans ce
cage
cas-là,
or whatever,
lorsque le poussin
because
a
it
sa
doesn't have that
propre
level of
poule naturelle,
consciousness.
il n'est pas
The
intéressé
instinctive
par le
level is, I want my
Et le
mummy.
robot se
Yeah?
déplace conformément.
Because animals in this world have jobs. Okay, they have jobs. Their job is to keep this earth ticking over. Right? So a lion doesn't eat antelope because it likes antelope meat. I'm sure it does, but that's not the primary purpose. The job of the lion is to keep the antelope population at the perfect amount so they can do their job. If, their job is to keep the savannah nice and tidy. If there's too many antelope, they start killing or destroying the savannah. So as the antelope population grows, the lion population grows, and the lions take out the old and the slow and the weak and keep the herd strong and doing their job. All animals in this world are doing the same thing. They're keeping this earth perfect. There's only one creature who doesn't have a job. That's us. Our job is to experience this place, yeah? To have whatever experience we want to have, okay? And we were given the tools to shape that experience. Yeah, well, I'm coming to that, actually. I'm coming to that. Right, so, am I coming to that? I hope I have. I don't know what I've cut. I've cut out a lot of my talk, so I don't know what I've cut out or not. But, so how do we access the fourth dimension? How do we access the fourth dimension? So your focus shifts to the fourth dimension whenever you imagine, whenever you daydream and imagine, yeah? That's, as I said, that's that process where you shut off your senses, your 3D senses, and you start using the four-dimensional senses. And these are the spiritual senses I'm talking about, okay? So if I got you to imagine your mother right now. So imagine your mum. Can you see her? Well, you're not using your eyes to do that, are you? No, you're using a different set of eyes. If I got you to imagine a duck quacking, can you hear that duck quacking now? Oh, a few of you can. Yeah, so you're not using your ears to hear that duck, right? You've got a whole different set of senses, okay? And remember, cause and effect, right? By imagining that duck, if you were really, really focused on that duck, you might find later on a duck will cross your path or something, yeah? Or a duck will dive bomb you or whatever, yeah? But this is the thing, cause and effect. That process of imagining, right, will have an effect in the world. I don't have very much time to answer questions, to be honest. Deja vu. Well, I'm coming to that, actually. I'm coming to that. So, again, when you daydream, it's almost the same thing. When you daydream, again, you're creating in the fourth dimension, just like I did. Yeah, I created a hologram with my daydream, in the fourth dimension, which created a universal hologram in the 3D world. Okay. The next way in is when you sleep and dream. Okay, whenever you sleep and dream, right? You're entirely in the fourth dimension. Yeah, the fourth dimension is the subconscious mind. You don't have your own subconscious. There is one subconscious mind. That's the mind of the Most High, and we all have access to it. Okay, so that subconscious mind, which you have command of, accesses your past, present, and future. Yeah, just pulls out imagery from your past, present, and future, and then as you start to wake up, your subconscious mind passes that information via the corpus callosum, the link between the two hemispheres, passes that information to your conscious mind. And your conscious mind tries to string that imagery together into a narrative that sort of makes sense. But again, it's sort of random imagery from your whole timeline, and it comes out as a weird dream. Okay. Now, again, something really weird happened when I was writing this bit of the talk, and I was talking about dreams. Something really weird happened. So when I was in my 20s, I had a dream that I knew what my children were going to be called. I had an older son called Kai, and a younger daughter called Jade, and I was like, I know what my children are going to be called. That's cool. So me and my girlfriend moved in together, and we had a couple, some friends come over, a couple, and the dream came out. I told the dream. I didn't know that she was pregnant, and she had a boy, and she called him Kai. I was like, stole my name. Okay, so I thought, no, don't worry, it's okay, no problem. But then my brother and his new girlfriend came round, and the dream came out again, and I didn't know that she was pregnant, and she had a boy, and she called him Kai. So now I can't have another Kai Murphy in the family. So then my daughter was born, right, and I was a bit disappointed because I thought I was going to have a boy first, right? But okay, my daughter was born, so I called her Jade. Then my son was born, couldn't call him Kai, so I called him Connor. Okay. As I was putting this, oh no, I forgot to show you. That's Kai. Okay, my friend's Kai. Okay, and this is about when he was 8 years old, pretty much the last time I saw him. And his dad died not too long after that, actually. So as I was putting this all together, and I was actually at the bit about dreams, Kai contacted me on Facebook. I haven't spoken to him since he was 8 years old. And he said, okay, I've been meaning to talk to you for a long time about this. I loved my dad, but he was a very stern man. I used to love coming over to your house to play with Jade, and you would teach us stuff, and you'd show us judo moves and all this stuff. And I've always thought of you as my dad. So when I had that dream in my 20s, I picked up on that moment, January this year, and I incorporated it into this dream. So all the information was correct. Kai is older than my daughter. Yeah, I did have a son and a daughter, right? But my conscious mind jumbled it up, right, and made a narrative out of it. Okay, it's just amazing. It just happened as I was actually doing that part of the talk. So yeah, anyway. So the next way you can get into the fourth dimension is on psychedelic substances. Okay, but there's something a little odd about this. If you go into the fourth dimension with artificial means, using drugs and even alcohol, you seem to go to a level where you're not alone, okay? There's usually other beings there, and they're not really there for your benefit, okay? So that's why I don't really advise anybody to try and play in the fourth dimension using hallucinogens, because it might be fun to start with, but as I said, these things don't have your best interests at heart. So, how you use the fourth dimension? Well, first of all, you've got direct control of your body, total control of your body. Okay, so we know about the placebo effect. Everybody heard of that? Yeah. If a sugar pill, if you believe a sugar pill was going to help you, then it will heal you. Okay. Interestingly, if the doctor giving you the sugar pill, if the doctor believes it's going to heal you, that effect is multiplied. There's a kind of third-party effect, okay, which multiplies it. Also, on the lines of you controlling your entire body, I don't know if you've heard of the phantom gym experiment, where all you have to do is imagine yourself going to the gym every day, and literally you will build muscle mass. You know, don't take it from me. Here's a neuroscientist who talks about it.
No weights for 2 weeks. They just sat there and they visualised themselves lifting weights. They had a 13% increase in muscle mass. People should realise how much potential they have in their brains.
So literally, a 13% increase in muscle mass is significant. And all they did was imagine themselves, having an experience in the gym. That's because your brain and body cannot tell the difference between a so-called real experience and an imagined one. They're all electrical signals. That's it. Okay? So your body will respond. So you could take 3 people, take them to the gym, get them to do the same exercises, same number of reps, same routines, whatever, and their bodies are going to shape themselves differently. Simply because one of them is a swimmer, one of them is a bodybuilder, and one of them is a gymnast. Because for each of those, they need a different body type. The lifting of weights and that is just a metaphor, right? Because, again, if you don't even have to lift the weights, right? It's a metaphor that they've got an intention. They want a particular body, and they're using the metaphor of lifting weights to get it. Your body's doing the shaping, not the weights. Okay? So the other thing is you can connect with others. Right? So in the 3D world, to connect with somebody, we've got this metaphor of you get a machine, you type in a certain unique number, and a machine in somebody else's pocket is going to ring, and now you're connected with them. Okay? That's a 3D model. In a 4D, all you need to do is visualize that person. Yeah? Just visualize them. Now you're connected, because in the 4th dimension, remember, the whole of time and space is all together in one thing. So all of us are all together in this one point. Right? So you can use the 4th dimension to connect directly to somebody in the 3rd. Beyond time and space. It doesn't matter where they are in the world. Right? You can connect directly to them. Obviously, we call that telepathy. And this is how it works. You've got 2 people there, one in London, one in New York, right? But they can't connect with each other, except with technology. But without technology, they can't connect with each other. But they can both access the 4th dimension, where they're both in the same place, and then communicate that way, past imagery, thoughts and feelings. How many times have you thought about somebody? I wonder where John is. And then John phones up. Yeah? We do it all the time, but we keep saying, oh, what a coincidence. Well, that's lucky, isn't it? So the other thing, when you connect with somebody, you can actually send healing to them. Remember the third-party effect with placebo? Yeah? So once you connect with somebody, you can sort of visualize them getting better. Okay? Also, with that connection, you can also visualize them having a particular experience. Yeah. So if they're going through a really rough patch, you can imagine them, feeling a lot better about the world. Putting them in a scenario where they're going to feel, a lot better about themselves, and you can remotely help them. Okay. Because you have direct control over your universe. They did experiments with pseudo-random number generators. So a computer would spit out a sort of stream of ones and zeros. And if it was 1,000 numbers, there's roughly 500 ones, roughly 500 zeros. They got a meditator to sit and meditate about creating more zeros and ones. And looked at the results, and significantly more zeros and ones. But this is a 4th dimension process, yeah? Just like the chick was affecting the random numbers in that machine, the meditators were affecting the random numbers that was being spat out by the computer. But it's not bound in time, remember? 4th dimension, all time happening all at once. So the next experiment they did was they got the machine to spit out a load of numbers, They didn't look at the results. They sealed those results into an envelope. Didn't look at it. They gave it to a meditator 10 years later. Right, and I told that meditator to meditate and concentrate on creating more ones and zeros. They opened it up and significantly more ones and zeros. Okay, because, while it wasn't being looked at, okay, while the results hadn't been looked at, the results weren't known yet. And you can have an effect on that uncertainty. Okay? And we do it all the time. If you ever decide you want to buy a car, right, and you say, I want a red Ford Fiesta, what's the first thing that's going to happen? You're going to see them everywhere, yeah? And it's not because you're now attuned to red Ford Fiestas so that when you see one, you go, oh, there's one. No, statistically, more red Fiestas are going to appear in front of you. Like the Most High is going, what about this one? What about this one? What about this one? Yeah? Well, I literally had this happen to me. This happens to a lot of people anyway, but I had it happen to me specifically because I manifested a girlfriend once. Okay? So I spent time, two sheets of paper, 4 sides, I literally described this girl in detail. In absolute detail. I mean, I knew everything about her, okay? And about a month later, I'm on a plane coming back from St. Lucia. I look up and there she is. I recognise her from my description, okay? So her name was Veronica. Because she's Eastern European, she called herself Vera. I wouldn't have, but, there you go. She called herself Vera, right? And I called her Impossible Girl. Because she's impossible, yeah? At the same time, very same time, my favourite TV show at the time was Doctor Who. And at exactly the same time, Doctor Who got a new companion, Clara, called the Impossible Girl. And they look very similar. If I saw her on the plane, I'd say, that's her. So we started going out together, and one of the things on my list was the reason why we broke up. It was because on my list I said she had to be open and accepting of my journey and wherever it might lead. So I had to be open and accepting of her journey and wherever that might lead, and that led away from me, right? Right. So, but I wasn't upset. Actually, I was actually quite sort of happy about it because, we had a great time together, yeah, and I was grateful for that. But there was a moment I went, oh. So I ended up going to stay in a community in Morocco. And the first person I met in Morocco was another Impossible Girl, Yulia. It's like the Most High going, what about this one? What about this one? Yeah? That's how it works, because nothing in this universe is random. There isn't anything random, because we affect the random. Yeah, does that make sense? We affect the uncertainty. Now, I help people, right? This is about how we can change our past and affect our present. I help people with their depression. And a lot of the time, your depression comes from a trauma you suffer as a child, okay? So let's imagine you're an 8-year-old and you suffer a trauma. That 8-year-old creates a program in the back of your mind. So to protect you from suffering from that trauma ever again, okay? So what I get people to do, right, is to remember that trauma was to an 8-year-old with an 8-year-old's mentality. An 8-year-old probably doesn't understand the situation, the complexities of the situation, and they just reacted to it. So I get people to imagine themselves as an 8-year-old standing in front of you. Right? So imagine yourself as an 8-year-old and then apply your adult perspective to that trauma. So you teach that 8-year-old, no, it didn't happen like that. Right? It's not your fault. There are nasty people out there but whatever. Right? And if you teach that child, then that program is no longer necessary, goes away. Here's the thing though. When you do that, when you imagine yourself as an 8-year-old, you are tapping into the 4th dimension, drilling into that object and finding you when you were 8 years old. And you become the voice in that 8-year-old's head that goes, it's not your fault, don't worry. You heal yourself in the past, which heals you in the present. Does that make sense? Yeah? I'm telling you, we are powerful beings. We can also change our future. Has anybody manifested a car parking space? Does it work? Yes, it does. How many of you have heard of Schrodinger's cat? Schrodinger's cat is a quantum physics experiment, thought experiment, and the idea is if you get a box, and in that box you put a vial of poison, and that poison has a trigger mechanism that is unreliable, so you don't know if it's going to go off or not, okay? So you put that vial of poison in the box, you put a cat in the box, put the lid on, and while that lid is on, that cat is in the state of being both alive and dead at the same time. Okay, it's in both states at the same time. And it only resolves itself when you open the box. And then it collapses down into one or the other. Okay? So if you don't get that, this is the idea of the Schrodinger's bowls. These bowls are in the state of both being broken and whole at the same time, and they'll only be resolved when you open the door. There's nothing you can do about stopping it, right? But it will resolve as soon as you open the door, yeah? That's the way it works. It's both broken and whole. So, when you manifest a car parking space, right, I think there's a process that goes on. So, in the normal course of events, okay, you've got John and Bob. Well, Bob is the one who's going to end up in that car parking space, okay? Now, in Bob's timeline, earlier on that day, he had a Schrodinger's cat moment. I think we all have these Schrodinger's cat moments when we make a decision, okay? Before we actually make that decision, there's a period of uncertainty where it can go one way or the other, okay? And most of these moments don't have any significance. In this case, he's deciding what he's going to have for breakfast. Is it going to be cereal or a banana? Okay. Under normal circumstances, he has cereal. He ends up at Tesco's at a particular time, just as John arrives, and his car parking space is filled up. He didn't ask for it, so it's already filled. He has to find somewhere else. But if John decides it's that car parking space, that request changes that Schrodinger's cat moment so that Bob has a banana instead. So that he leaves the house 5 minutes early, and as he leaves, John arrives. Does that make sense? Yeah? So here's the thing. John did not affect the choice. He always chose the banana. Because, again, no time and space in the dimension. No time and space in the no time and space in the fourth dimension. Okay. So the is he flying around with this? Huh? So the moment John asked for that car parking space, well, the choice was always a banana, because it's all happening all at once. Okay. So I've seen this happen in my life. My future could be summed up in some of the films that I watched. Films and TV that I used to love watching, okay? So I became a computer programmer because of the film Tron, okay? I love that film, love the idea. I wanted to go and live in America, coming to America. One of my favourite shows growing up was Magnum P.I., yeah? I wanted to live that life. And later on, I got into London's Burning, right? Because I harboured that fantasy of being a fireman. Yeah. So I went to the American Embassy to ask, how can I go and live in America? And they said to me, okay, have you got any money? I said, no. Have you got a degree? No. Have you got a special skill? No. Just asked me all these questions. I was just like, no. He said, sorry, you can't go and live in America. I was like, okay. So I wanted to become a a computer programmer. So I went to the biggest employer for programmers at the time, BT. They were having a job fair. And I grabbed a couple of jobs. So the only two jobs that I thought were suitable. One of them was a managerial level, top computer programmer. I had no hope of getting. And the other one was a help desk worker. I thought if I work on a help desk, I can work my way up to being a programmer. Okay. So I thought, okay, I'd love this top job, but no way. So they were having a job fair in this big building. One side of the building was for the lower level one, the help desk one. The other side was for the managerial level jobs. So I went along to this interview. I went to the wrong side. So I walked in. The guy said, can I see your CV? I wrote a little program on a floppy disk. Does anybody remember floppy disks? So I wrote a little program on floppy disk. It was like a book you can click on and pages would turn and you see all this stuff. And the guy started playing with my little CV. He never even asked me a question. He said, when can you start? I was like, oh, brilliant, okay. So I started at this place. It was the Research and Development Laboratories in Martlesham Heath in Ipswich. And there was 4,000 people there. I was the only one who didn't have a degree. Okay, so I started working there. 2 weeks into it, I realised I'm not on the help desk. I'd got the managerial job. So now I was a computer programmer. Yeah? Within a year, I got a promotion from another part of BT. So my manager said, I'm going to block it. I don't like people poaching my staff. So I got pissed off. I thought, well, if you're going to block my promotion, I'm going to apply for jobs outside of BT. So I just applied for all sorts of jobs, just put them on my desk and my manager would see them. But my manager couldn't block my promotion. So I started this really great job, another part of BT. A month later, I got a phone call. Dave, you got the job in New York. I was like, what job in New York? So one of the application forms was for a job in New York. I didn't even know. Right? And so I got a job in New York. They did all the paperwork. I ended up living in America for 15 years. Yeah? And while I was there, to decide where I'm going to live in America, I stuck a pin in the map. And where it landed, the town that it landed in, well, they were the only town around that had a volunteer fire department. So I became a firefighter. And while I was at Fire Academy, all these people at the academy get a nickname. And for some reason, they called me Magnum. I don't know why. It was probably because of the chalk ice, but, But they called me Magnum. So I got to live London's Burning. And, a little while later, I ended up getting my Ferrari. So I lived Magnum PI. Yeah? That was my whole life was mapped out because of the things that I really, really wanted. And in my 20s, and they all came through in my 30s because I was focused on them. Yeah? So you can obtain whatever it is you need in this world, right? Whatever it is you need. If you imagine a cell in your hand, okay, that cell is a living organism that thinks it's you. If you take it out and put it in a petri dish where there's some good stuff on one side and bad stuff on the other, it will keep away from the bad stuff and go towards the good stuff. Yeah? So imagine that cell in your hand going one day, oh, I need salt. If there's no salt, I'm going to die. Where's the salt? Where's the salt? I need salt. Eventually, that's going to percolate up to you. And you might go, I fancy anchovies tonight. Yeah? And all of a sudden, that cell's going, what a coincidence. I've been dying for salt, and all this salt appears. How does that happen? Yeah? It's because that cell is part of a larger body. And when it needs something, the body has to respond. Well, every one of you is a cell in a larger body. Right? And when you need something, that body has to respond. Okay? So in my life, I live in a motorhome. That was my old motorhome, yeah? Now, it got riddled with black mould one time, and it nearly killed me. So I needed to replace the motorhome. So I was clearing it out and I was thinking, what do I need to replace it with? So I was looking around it. I thought, I love this van. It's really unusual. You don't see them anywhere, this type anywhere. I want this van, but better. So I said, you don't find them anywhere. And it turned out they'd tripled in price since I bought that one. So I tried to, collect money together, and it wasn't going very well. And I got a nice donation, not huge, but I thought, let me go and check on eBay, see what's there. First page, same make, same model, same year, but everything that was wrong on my van was fixed in this one. And there were 22 people bidding on it. I didn't have anywhere near enough money for it. And I thought, well, what else can I do? And I put every penny I had, I bid on it, and I got it. I can't explain it. How does that happen? Yeah, it's exactly what I wanted. Right, so I'm trying to tell you, you are powerful. I don't have enough time to go into how they've cut you off from your power, but the full talk, I go into detail about how they've done it to you. But you're doing this all the time, but you sort of brush it off as coincidence, yeah. But with great power comes great responsibility. You also have to be careful what you wish for. This is a great fail-safe mechanism, right, behind this. If for instance I said, "Oh, I don't like you. I want you to break your leg." What am I focusing on? I'm focusing on a broken leg. What am I going to draw into myself? A broken leg. It's an amazing fail-safe system, yeah? So, if you were you're anti-war, you want to stop the war. Stop the war! Stop the fighting! What are you focusing on? War and fighting. The subconscious doesn't understand negatives. There's no such thing as nothing in this universe. Yeah? So how do you visualize nothing? Yeah? How do you visualize a negative? You can't. Okay? So the only thing that the subconscious can pick up on is war. So that's what you're going to draw into yourself. If there's anybody who does kinesiology here. Anybody? No? Okay. So a kinesiologist will do muscle testing. So they'll test how strong you are, yeah, and as soon as you say something negative or think something negative about somebody else or yourself, you become weak. And as soon as you say something positive about yourself or somebody else, you become strong. So when you harbour anger and hatred towards somebody, who are you harming? Yourself. Yes. So when you realise you've got this power, there is no need for envy, hatred, all the negative stuff, greed, depression. None of it. There's no need for it. Because you can have any experience you really want in this world. So, don't be a villain. Be a superhero. Yeah? There's no reason why you shouldn't be. So, does everybody want to know what the big secret is? Yes. Okay, you guys come to, I'll tell you. Does everybody want to know what the big secret is? Okay, all right. The big secret is you're going to die. You're all going to die, okay? That's the big secret, okay? They're trying to hide that from you, okay? Because, they're trying to say, do as we say and you'll live. Yeah, that's the message, okay? But you're all going to die. And you don't know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. You don't know how it's going to happen. It doesn't matter if somebody holds you down and sticks mRNA in your arm, or you trip up over a paving stone and hit your head. You're going to die. So you can take that off the table. And you can live your life without fear. Yeah? When I was going to college, I used to play this video game, Defender. Anybody play it? Yeah. So the interesting thing about this game is that it's got these things up the top here called smart bombs. Yeah. So when things get really sort of hectic and crazy on screen, I think in a second you'll see it. Right. You can hit a smart bomb, and everything on screen disappears. and can live to fight another day. The worst thing in the world for me is if I lose all my lives and I look up in a corner and there's still smart bombs left. It means I've wasted an opportunity to keep going. Yeah? When I cross the finish line, when I leave this life, I want no petrol left in the gas tank. I want the car to fall apart. I want to be able to look up and see no smart bombs left. Yeah? Because life isn't about staying safe, right, and arriving at the deathbed in perfect condition. Right, standing and saying, isn't it marvellous? I haven't got a scratch on me. Yeah? It's about doing the right thing, even if it costs your life. Doing the right, because you're going to die. Then why not make it a good death? Yeah? I think the best death is to give up my life saving somebody else. Yeah? I was lucky enough to be told what my purpose in this life is. Right? Somebody got me to lie down on the ground and imagine an atmospheric place. And I imagined a teepee with a fire in the middle and logs around the fire. As I'm describing it to him, he interrupts me and goes, somebody's come in, who is it? And I got this picture of a friend of mine dressed as an Indian medicine woman, and she sat down opposite me and opposite the fire. My friend said, ask her whatever you want. And I said, what's my purpose here? And without missing a beat, she said, to help and inspire by just being you. I thought, I can do that. I know how to be me. But I was gypped because this is everybody's purpose. Because every one of us is unique. Right? You're unique because only you, right, in the whole of history, in the whole of the future, only you sees this world through your eyes. Yeah? You've got a unique perspective on this world. So you can think things that nobody else will ever think. You might say something that nobody else will ever say. You can change the world with just one word. Right? That's what they fear. Okay? Because they want everybody to be like everyone else. Right? So they can control how you manifest in this world. So have the courage to follow your heart and intuition and go out there and be Neo. Thanks a lot.